Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Have you ever fancied having a go at just trying out a window manager, but what puts you off is the configuration that it's probably going to require to get it up and running and looking just as you want? Well, don't worry. There are a few options out there where you can get a window manager fully configured, and a couple of them have a real wow factor. Let's talk after the intro. Okay, welcome back. Today, we're going to look at Openbox again. Before we do that, though, can I just point out, if you enjoy my videos, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe. And you all know I've got a Patreon account now. If you'd like to support the channel, you can catch me at patreon.com/OldTechBloke. Enough of that. So, Openbox, why am I returning? Well, those of you who watch my channel will have seen my video on Openbox. It was my first play with a window manager on its own that wasn't a full desktop environment. And I managed to put the Tint 2 panel on it. I got a little menu with XDo tools on the Tint 2 panel. And I used OB menu generator. And I worked with it for a month or two. And after working with it, I mean, it's a floating window manager. It isn't a tiling window manager. And I started to ask myself the question, why do I actually need a full desktop environment? And I think there was a couple of things that kind of generated that thought. I don't really like other people's customizations pushed onto me. And so even with a desktop environment, I would spend quite a lot of time fiddling with the default settings, making it look how I wanted, and basically uninstalling stuff that I didn't want. But rather than doing it that way, starting with something big and ending up with what you actually want, why not go the other way? Why not start with something minimal and build it up? And that's what I did with Openbox. And at the end of the day, I thought, well, wow, what I've basically done is created my own desktop environment. It took a fair bit of doing. It was mainly about messing about with configuration files, but I got it working really well. Now, I know that there are some of you out there who perhaps have dallied with the idea of trying a window manager. You may not want to go the tiling window manager route at this time because you like a floating window manager. You're used to that traditional stacking windows paradigm. Is that the right word? I don't know. But what really puts you off is having to configure it from scratch. And I can understand that. Because if you install Openbox, you get very little out of the box. Just to show you exactly what you do get, I installed Openbox on Void Linux, the one that I've got installed on my system, just so you can see what you get as a vanilla Openbox. Let's go to that now. Okay, just to give you an idea of what a vanilla Openbox looks like, I've just booted up my Void Linux distribution and I've installed Openbox. And this grey screen that you should see before you now is what Openbox looks like before it's configured. There's no wallpaper, there's no panels. Left click does nothing, but there is a right click menu, although it's a pretty generic menu and it doesn't at this stage reflect what's actually installed on your system. You might be able to launch something if you happen to have one of these applications installed. I know I have XFCE installed, so it'll open that. But nevertheless, this is your raw foundation for building your own desktop environment. Right then, so there's not a lot to see there, and I can certainly understand why many of you may go, oh, that looks horrible. And I'm not sure I have the skills or the knowledge or the patience to slowly piece something together so it starts to look better. Luckily, you don't have to do that. There are a range of distributions out there that use Openbox rather than a desktop environment, and they are pre-configured. These give you the chance to get used to the window manager itself and how it works, and you may eventually decide that you like Openbox enough and you've learnt enough about it that you're then ready to do your own customizations. Well, I've spent a little bit of time, mainly last weekend actually, last Sunday, looking at what's out there, and I've come up with 2 distros that I'm pretty impressed with. One is the Manjaro community version of Openbox, and the other is a distribution that I've never heard of before called Maybox Linux, which is also based on the Manjaro repos, so they're both Manjaro distros. The fact that the Manjaro is coincidental. I wasn't too bothered what the underlying package management framework was. It didn't matter to me. It could have been Debian, it could have been Slackware. I just wanted to see what the implementations of Openbox were like. But these 2, for me, stood out. So what I'm going to do today is I'm not going to go through the nuts and bolts of each system. I'm simply going to highlight the look and feel and some of the functionality and see what you think. At the end of the day, if you like them, you can install them yourself, or, you can either use their dot files as a basis for building your own Openbox system on the distro of your choice. Because let's face it, you can install Openbox on anything. Before we do that, let's just quickly go to the web pages of each distribution. Right, so I knew Manjaro was a very, very popular distro, so this was my starting point, really. And I went to the Manjaro web page and I looked under their community spins and I found this one. Their Openbox edition, and you can see a screenshot of it here. They describe it as for power users, developers and music production, which I actually think is a little bit limiting. Openbox is for everyone, and having looked at this distro, I see no reason why it should be for power users only. Anybody could use this. Openbox is a stacking window manager, so it uses floating windows like you generally get in a desktop environment. They have menu systems installed. They have tools. In fact, this one actually uses the XFC settings. So you don't have to do much messing about with text-based configuration files. And both of the distros I look at today are Calamaris installations. So it really is just next, and it's up and running. So I downloaded this, I installed it, and I gave it a spin. I also looked at Maybox Linux, which came up in a web search somewhere. You can find it on mayboxlinux.org. I've never heard of this before, but reading through the web page, I see that it's Manjaro based again. It's got a slightly different look and feel. This version was actually released in March 2020, so it's quite recent, just before the lockdown. And going through here, I see they had another release in 2018 and one in 2017. So there's not been a huge amount of releases, but at the end of the day, it's using the Manjaro libraries. So, you've got the security that you're using a known thing. So you can see how it looks. It's got the Calamaris installer. Their web page has a nice little user guide that you can go to, download, installation, etc., etc. And again, once you've installed this, next process, and it's up and running, and it's incredibly functional. So Maybox and Manjaro. Let's go and have a look at them now, starting with Manjaro. Right, so in comparison to that vanilla Openbox session that you've just seen with the grey screen and a strange right-click menu that didn't really relate to what you have installed. What you're seeing now is the Manjaro Openbox Community Edition. I'm not going to show the installation because it's just a standard Calamaris install, no problem whatsoever. And after the install, this is what you get. You get the standard help screen, which is always good to see, and you get a very clean looking Openbox. It has Conky over here, and the only thing that I would say about this is the particular Conky that is chosen by default was displaying my public IP when I looked at it earlier, so clearly I had to just edit the Conky file to make sure that that doesn't show. But yeah, this is what you get. And what you're seeing here at the top is Polybar. I've not seen Polybar used with Openbox before, but actually, I think it looks quite nice. And you can obviously move workspaces up here. It looks like it's got the awesome icon set. And we're even using the JG menu. So, brilliant. You've got a nice, straightforward left-click menu there that gives you, well, pretty much everything you're going to need. I'm just looking at the accessories here. We have a Kvantum Manager, an Archive Manager, your terminal editor, which is Termite, I believe, a text editor, Compton or PyCom as it's now called, and of course Nitrogen that you're going to want for your wallpaper. Let's just click on Nitrogen and see what's already installed. So it looks to me like you've got a few options for wallpaper. Let's just choose another one and see what that looks like. Oh, I think we'd need to stretch that. Let's do zoom to fill to see if that looks any different. Yeah, okay. I'm not convinced, if I'm honest. Let's go for smoke and fire. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so you can always add wallpaper. Of course you can. So we were looking down here at what it's got. They're your accessories. You've also got Firefox installed by default and something just called Web Browser. Let's see what that is. It should open up in a second, and I can already see that's clearly just another link to Firefox. Okay, no problem. Multimedia, okay, just the volume icon that you see on the... Well, which one is it actually? I'm looking for the volume icon, and I don't think I'm necessarily seeing it here on Polybar, but we'll get to that after. Let's launch it and see if it comes up. Okay, not a big issue. You've also got the full LibreOffice suite there, and all of your preferences. Now, looking at these preferences, it looks to me like this particular version of Openbox is using XFCE settings, but we'll confirm that in a minute. And then you've got clearly system, you've got your firewall. I'm presuming that might be UFW, but let's have a look. No, it's not. It's Firewall D, which is fine. I'd personally prefer to use UFW, but it's pretty easy to switch these things out. And what else have we got? HTOP. Let's have a look at HTOP. And it's currently showing 326 meg. You'd expect it to be lightweight. It is only Openbox at the end of the day. And I think I've just realised my mistake before. We do indeed have a volume icon down here. On what I believe is a Tint 2 panel down below. So that's Network Manager clearly. That's the Package Manager. Okay, Mac Manager. And this, I've disabled the volume, so it's just showing across. So we have got the volume icon down here. Up here, we obviously have, I'm presuming that's CPU speed, although it could be this one. That could be memory, but we'll check in a second. And the time and date. Being Openbox, you're obviously going to have a right-click menu as well, and it looks a little bit more populated than the one we've already seen. And let's have a look. So it should repeat a lot of what we've already seen in the JG menu at the top, and it does. It's just in a slightly different format. Yeah, multimedia, networking, there's your Firefox, there's LibreOffice. I'm not sure what Micro is. Oh, Micro, is that an editor? Yeah, that's an editor, of course it is. Let's have a look. Settings, all your settings here. The system, Gparted, Htop, Conky, etc., etc. And a nice link to all the different places on your system. So if I wanted to open up the documents folder, I can click on that and it will open what I believe is, yeah, Thunar. That's quite nice. So, and then we have preferences. And in our preferences, we have links to all the Openbox configuration files. If you configure Openbox yourself, you'll probably be using a text editor to edit the likes of menu.xml and rc.xml and the auto start file. But I see here that they actually have some GUI tools. So let's just try the Gui Key Binding Editor. And I had a play with this earlier. All your key bindings are here. So let me find the terminal one, which I believe is Super T. There we are, Super T. And it's termite. Double click on it if I want to change the accelerator. And I just press Super T. And there we go. And of course you can copy any of these and amend them. So in terms of shortcuts, Super T opens a terminal. Super F opens up a file manager. Super W opens up Firefox. And you will find that if you start using a window manager, you will soon get used to using key bindings. Looks like we're using OB menu generator here, which helps to give us this much more finely detailed menu. We can display our key bindings, and we've got some links there to the Manjaro homepage, Openbox guide, Tint2 guide, Polybar guide, etc., etc. Okay, so quite nice. Let's have a quick look. If I do Super F and I open up the file manager, I want to see what the config files are. So just looking very briefly, yes, we've got a JG menu folder there, which is for that. Nitrogen is there. OB menu generator, yes, that's what's installed. There's our standard Openbox folder. And let's just see what's auto starting. So, yeah, we are actually including XFCE settings with Openbox. That doesn't mean XFCE is installed. We've just installed the XFCE settings to just make life a little bit easier. We've got a compositor, and we have some options here to run Thunar or PC Man FM in daemon mode. So we've got Nitrogen Restore being started. We've got Polybar being started. We've got Tint2 being started. So it's an interesting mix. Polybar at the top and Tint2 at the bottom. If I was honest, I think I'd probably just run Polybar. I don't think I'd bother with Tint2 on this. You've got your Conky session. You've got your volume icon. Polkit. Okay, it's running Polkit. And XDG user DIRS, which is the one that creates your home directory folders. Okay, so let's go back. Let me just make this a little bit smaller. Right, I see it's transparent, our Tint2 at the moment. What else have we got? We've got PAMAC, PyCom, Polybar. Right, let's see what's on the basic configuration file for Polybar. So JG menu and the workplace Windows switcher, which is what we can see there. And modules on the right-hand side. The wired network, the wireless network. Actually, I don't see them. They're down below on our Tint 2 bar. Battery, well, that's neither here nor there because I'm on a desktop. Memory, and yes, this is clearly to do with CPU. So the memory, I'm presuming I'm right in thinking that's saying I'm using 8% of my memory at the moment. Okay, you can obviously change these out and edit it to suit. There's Tint 2. And if you wanted, you could even take the dot files out of something like this and use them to configure your own Openbox session, if you like the look and feel of this, in any distro of your choice, just using the dot files. That's one of the big advantages. So, yeah, I'm generally quite impressed. I think with the menu, and this is what people often miss when they move to a window manager, with the menu there and with having a nice Polybar instance, I think this makes this really user-friendly. As I say, I don't think I would use Tint 2 as well. What I would say is you have obviously got Mac. And Manjaro seems to promote this for updating your system. On both the Openbox systems that I'm going to look at today, they're fully updated, by the way, I attempted to use Mac to do the updates. In both situations, Mac stalled and failed. In one situation, because it said there was an unresolved or a conflict that couldn't be resolved, and in another case, it just seemed to freeze. This is one of the reasons why I always would suggest use Mac for the odd installation, by all means, you know, installing the odd package, but don't use it for updates. Use it as an update notifier, use it as a method of searching for packages, but whenever you're going to run large updates, use the command line. So, yeah, I quite like that. I think most people could cope with that and build on the customization that's there. So that's Manjaro Community Edition. Very nice on the whole. It did highlight, though, one of the issues that I've tended to find with all Arch systems in relation to Mac. For large updates, just use Pacman on the command line. For me, it worked. It highlighted a few conflicts and it removed a couple of files and replaced them with others, but everything worked fine and the update completed. With Mac, it failed in both instances. Okay, that said, let's go and have a look at Maybox. Right, so in contrast to Manjaro's community version of Openbox, you now see Maybox Linux in front of you, which has a very different look and feel. And this review is about look and feel rather than about the functionality. It's about how they've been configured in different ways. And what you'll see here is we haven't got a bottom bar like we had on the Manjaro Community Edition. We just have a single bar at the top. And I believe this is Tint 2. We do have a menu, and I'm going to make a guess here, but I think this is also the JG menu. And I'm just looking through what we've got here. We've got a number of accessories, including nitrogen. What have we got in terms of wallpaper? Oh, right, we've actually got quite a large selection of wallpaper. I mean, it's a minor thing, but it's always nice to have this right from the word go. In fact, it's got one of my favourites there, so let's just apply that. I stole this wallpaper for my own system a while ago, and I really quite like it. That's brilliant. I like that. We've got a terminal, so not quite sure what that is at the moment, but never mind. A web browser, which is Firefox, a file manager, Let's have a look at the about. What is it? It's PC Man FM, so it's a little bit lighter. I'm just looking over here at the RAM usage, and it's currently showing us 281. Let's launch a terminal and see if HTOP is actually installed. Yes, it is. Okay, that's showing 312. So to be honest, there's not that much in it between the Community Edition and this, but nevertheless, always good to see. These are both very, very lightweight window managers. Add and remove software. I'm presuming that's a link to PMAC. Yes, it is. And of course, with PMAC, you can select preferences and set how you want it to manage things. I believe this has Yay installed by default, which is always good. And yeah, Manjaro have included the management of snaps if you want snaps to be included on the system. Although with Arch-based systems, it's really not a big issue. There's that much in the AUR. Although you may prefer using snaps, completely up to yourself. So graphics, not much. Viewneo. What is Viewneo? I'll have to have a look at that. Well, that doesn't tell me much. Let's have a look. Internet, well, we got Firefox. We've got a second web browser there. I'm guessing that is Firefox as well, but we'll wait till it launches. Yes, it is. It's obviously an Openbox quirk that it shows up with a generic entry of a web browser as well as Firefox. And we have a mail reader, which is, it doesn't actually give me a mail application. It just seems to be a link to an application. Right, Office. Right, no LibreOffice installed on here by default. Got Genie for programming. We've got MPV media player, volume icon, and a few system tools there. Gparted, PC Man FM. No sign here, though, of the XFCE settings. In fact, I'm looking down here, and it would appear not. We have something called a Power Manager. Okay, they're using the XFCE Power Manager, which is fine. And preferred applications. So some of these are probably from XFCE, but tell you what, let's go into the config file and have a look and see what is actually being used. It's funny, when you don't use a window manager and you just use a desktop environment, you don't tend to go into your config directory that much, or at least I didn't. But when you use a window manager, you tend to. I just want to see what's starting up in the background here. So we have the GNOME Poll Kit, we have Nitrogen, we have Tint, we have Volume Icon and XFCE4 Volume Pulse. We have PC Man FM -D, so in daemon mode or daemon mode, depending on how you pronounce it. PyCom, and actually not that much else. So it's not using the whole of the XFCE settings package here. But as we go across, I see JG menu is making an appearance there as well, and so is Yay, Nitrogen, Terminator. Maybe it's Terminator that's installed. So we've got a couple of conkeys here. I was pleased to see that my public IP wasn't on this conkey on the right, but we do have a conkey on the left, which gives us some nice access to our key bindings. So Super T gives us a terminal. Let's have a look. Super W gives us a web browser. Okay, all good. And what about a file manager? Super F. They seem to be fairly generic key bindings. What I do like about this is Tint 2 up here, and I quite like the way it's configured with this transparent, a transparent bar basically. And what we have here is links to your different desktops, or back to one. You have Network Manager, you have a link to PMAC Manager, you have your volume icon, and your system icon there. And of course, here, you have your Tint 2 panel themes. You could have accessed this on the previous system we looked at as well, but hey-ho, it is what it is. I'm only just clicking on this now. What you will see on either end of this Tint 2 panel up here is little arrows. And if you click on them, it gives you a sidebar, which I really quite like. You've got a search box, and then you have links to your main directory. So you could go to any of these particular directories. So if I said etc, I'd like to open a file manager here. And there you go. Your file manager opens at the etc directory. What else? So it's a nice, very, very quick way of going to a particular directory. Let's just have a look here. And if I go back to etc, I've also got the option to open a terminal here. And there you go. I'm in the etc directory. What about on the right-hand side? You have another sidebar there, which essentially gives you a sort of menu with updates if you want. So system update per Mac or system update CLI. Let's just click on that. Oh, very nice. So it runs the Pacman command in the background. There's nothing to update because I updated it earlier. Renew keys, rank mirrors, the Maybox control center. So let's open that and see what it is. In fact, this was what started up initially, and I unfortunately made the mistake of shutting it down. So you've got a nice little welcome screen here, which you can access from over here on that right side menu as well. Keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so that's your standard key bindings. I don't think this is for editing. This is just so you can quickly see what they are, which can be useful. And a screenshot tool and all your standard logout, suspend, reboot. I really quite like this. So this is Maybox, built on, well, with the Manjaro repos. And again, it's another great implementation of Openbox. Right, so that's two different Openbox desktops. Both of them look pretty good, I think. Both of them are incredibly usable. And I don't think it matters how experienced you are in using Linux. I think they would suit anybody. It's just down to personal preference. On the Manjaro version, I like the way that Polybar was used with the awesome icons. With the Maybox edition, I was really impressed with those sidebars. But for both editions, I thought the functionality was brilliant. It would be wrong to just call them window managers anymore. They're their own desktop environments. And if you get used to using these, you may well decide to build up your own Openbox look and feel, even using the dot files from either of these two if you prefer, because of course these are Manjaro, but if you use another distro, Debian or whatever, well, you can use the dot files and it'll look exactly the same. That's the great thing about a window manager. You become less dependent on distros and you're more about how it functions and looks for you. And once you have your dot files, you can transfer it over to any distro that you like. So that's about it for today, guys. There probably won't be another video this week until next weekend because I'm completely off furlough now and back working full time, and they're sending me down to that London this week. So I'm working in North London all week. But there will be another one on Saturday. In between times, please join me on Library. And of course, as usual, I would like to say a big thank you to my Patreons, particularly my newest member, Robert Trimble, who's joined on the premium tier. Thank you, mate. And everybody else that you see there. Corbinian Schilderman, Robert Boudreau, Gary Moore, Aristotelis Papagiorgio, Stormpix, Stephen Cross, Mike Long, David Bird, Entropy UK, Richard Wade, Tiger, and Philip Espy. Thank you so much, guys. Your support means more than you'll know. Right, guys, see you next week.